think.
My froze. Okay, let me restart the stream and see what happened here.
Ooh.
Okay, I think I unfroze it. Oh. Okay, I think we're good.
Are we alright now? Maybe?
Yes, I think we're alright. Yes, there's audio, everything's moving again, and there's people clapping, so I think you can start over.
Okay, so we just had, I caught the tail end of the SM64 Toho run, so let's have a Toho game that emulates Mario instead, because why not? So, this is effectively a new Super Mario Bros. Wii style experience in the sense that you can play this with 4 players at once, and it can get fairly chaotic, but it's always easier playing with yourself here. So, you've got the 4 characters. It's Amapani, so you've got Alice, Marissa, Patchouli, and Notori. Those are the 4 main player characters. Just real quick before we start, because this gets really intensive at the start, and I might not actually get the first couple of tricks, I want to just briefly show the characters off, because I've got time in the estimate anyway. So every character's got their own speed set, which is the blue stars. They've got sort of a weight tier to it, so they fall faster or they can float a little bit. And you've got your general sort of air hop dash stuff to go a little bit quicker. Everybody's got a special ability, so we'll be using Marissa's hair dash quite a lot. It's pretty useful stuff. Alice has got shield for projectile deflection, as you would expect. That can come in handy for a couple of the bosses. She does move a little bit slower overall, a little bit more of a float to her. So there's that. And then you've got Patchouli here, who is very floaty, very slow, but she has projectiles that you can use on the enemies. So it's kind of neat, very stable to start with. And then poor Notori here gets pretty much no use in this whatsoever, because she's slower than Marissa, she is basically as floaty as Marissa, and her extending arm is fairly useless in this game. It can damage enemies, but it stops the momentum entirely, so sadly we're not going to get to see Notori in this. The other thing to do is your broom bounce stuff here. So the main glitch I'll be trying to use is to effectively maintain the speed of the broom at the start. Maintaining that with the bouncing off of enemy stuff so you can actually go super fast through the stages. It's pretty much that. It's very finicky, so it's worth showing it off at the start. And I guess at that point we're good to go. So let's go in 3, 2, 1, begin. So there's pretty much no breaks in this run until you get to the auto-scroller stuff. It's around about 6 minutes or so before you actually get anything going here. So restarts are incredibly quick, and your stage transitions at the end are also very quick. So honestly, it's a little bit rough trying to explain a lot of the stuff at the start. So the bouncing is mostly in the early stages, because the later stages, Desinoi is very good at making puzzle type games, like puzzle platformer sort of stuff, so there tends to be more complicated elements coming in later on in the run. So it's very tricky to just go, oh yeah, we'll get a broom badge, this is how it works, etc., when you've got like 2 minutes of World 1 here. So it's kind of weird, because you've got very simple mechanics, really. You don't have a whole myriad of like triple jumps or anything as you would in a 3D sort of game, but what you do have is a lot of mid-air versatility, and it can be very tricky to sort of maintain the ideal speed here. When you do a forward dash like this, you actually do walk slightly quicker, or you run slightly quicker than you would during a standard dash, just running forwards. It's not as quick. It's more noticeable for other characters because they do move a lot slower than Marissa. We're running on an older version of the game. It's version 1.06 because they actually had to nerf Marissa's speed in the future patches because she was moving too quickly in multiplayer and the other characters couldn't keep up. But that kind of ruins a couple of the tricks I do later on, so unfortunately we have to just kind of stick with the older version here. It's a bit of a shame because the new version actually does introduce secondary skills for the characters, and some of them are pretty cool, but they're not fast, so we have to just stick with what we got. So, the very basic idea with this game is that some of your stuff is being stolen and you are trying to get it back. And we don't know who stole it, That's kind of the way we go. So we have Mouse, we've got Nazrin over here. She is kind of going to be our guide for the game. She has the treasure-seeking sort of abilities, so I didn't get the trick there. So you can actually get yourself in stun lock at the end of this. Oh, or you could actually just die. That works too. This is the one boss where you don't get iframes at the end of the fight, which is really weird. But yeah, it's not too bad. You can actually get a sort of stun lock in the middle. Let's see if we can get it this time. Yep, there we go. So you can actually save about 5 seconds with that if you don't get wrecked by it. Alright, so well, to Forest of Magic, we're kind of just going to be going through a couple of locations that I guess have been hinted at to us. One thing with this game is you can cancel iframes, not iframes like hit stun, if you have an enemy bounce on your feet. So it's not particularly useful in a lot of places, but it can show up from time to time. This is also a Touhou game through and through, so bullet hitboxes are not necessarily all-encompassing. So just keep that in mind as we go as well. So this is where we're going to start seeing a few less boom bounces. You can get one there, which can be a little bit of a time save, but it really doesn't get you too far, because this game also kind of follows the Sonic 4 principle of if you are not holding forwards, you are not moving forwards, no matter what. So unfortunately, it's one of those that if you stop moving forwards with a bounce, you will lose all of the bonus speed. So we have a couple of chase bosses here. This is one of the 3 Fairies of Light, and if you let her go too far forwards, then she will basically just run away from you forever, and it's really annoying. There's an end to that stage, and it's red spikes of instant death. You don't want that. Try and actually get this. This is the one bounce that's supposed to be like 100% consistent for me, but whatever. Bouncing off of bunnies that are jumping up into you is obviously the easiest way of getting the boom bounce, but there are some far crazier setups that can happen as well. But that's fine. Doesn't really matter. This is one of those games where there's not a whole lot of like gigantic skip stuff, but there's a lot of small sort of optimizations to everything. And it's tricky. It looks so simple, but there's a lot of really intensive sort of movement that goes on in many of the places here. So we're gonna have our second chase fight here against Sunny. Now Luna went horizontal, Sunny is gonna go up the screen instead, which is a fair bit harder to keep chase of. Sometimes this fight just goes really weird, but you do want to get a quick cycle here by getting up above her. They have a little bit of time after you hit them where you can't actually damage them again. So you want to make sure that you get above her so she doesn't go all the way at the top of the screen now. Anyhow, a little bit of a break, take it easy, and we'll get through the next stage. This basically thwomps the Yukuris. You can't damage them, they just do their Yukari thing, and you just gotta kind of go around them. If you do a forward dashi, you can actually get past that without taking damage, otherwise you end up landing on the Yukari itself. Not particularly good. You can land in spikes if you want to, but I don't recommend it. And now we get the one stage where we actually use Patchouli instead, because Patchouli can kind of skip ahead here. If you bounce off the fairies in just the right way with that, you can actually skip ahead, and rather than going up the platform set there, you can just kind of go up. Saves like 2 seconds overall, because Patchouli's a little bit slower at getting some of the other stuff done here. But Patchouli is also a little bit better at fighting the boss here, so it works out quite nicely in the end. So, the one thing, if I had to knock like anything in this game, it's that there's a couple too many auto-scrollers in places for me here. This is the first one. It's really not too bad getting to here, but there's a few which are decidedly less interesting later on. But for the most part, like, you can actually skip some of the auto-scrolling stuff, which is pretty fun. And yeah, it just gives a chance to show. You've got Patchouli is like, for whatever reason, Patchouli is the only one in the the initial versions of this game that has 2 different specials, and they're exactly the same thing. It's just one of them you hold up and she fires upwards instead. You know, fireballs versus soul blades, whichever one you prefer, I guess. I don't know. Having an anti-air option is pretty good though. So Star doesn't actually follow the same general pattern as her sisters do. She, well, I don't know if they're actually sisters, but point is, she does a different thing because she is a special snowflake, I guess, and goes invisible instead. She's actually going to make the others go invisible in the fight with all 3 of them as well, which we're getting to at the end of this world, so it gets a little bit more annoying. I didn't get that. There's a broom bounce you can get there, which will save about 4 or 5 seconds or so. It's notoriously stupid to get, so I was never expecting to pick that one up, but that's okay. It just means you don't get hit at the end of the stage there as well, which is a little bit nicer, but whatever. So, as far as different enemy types go here, the brown fuzzies you can't actually interact with other than taking damage. The red ones are your, like, regular Goombas, I guess, except they don't walk off edges. The green ones act as Koopa shells, which we'll see later on, and the cyan ones will actually jump at you if... where'd you go? There you go. The cyan ones will actually jump if they see you jump. So kind of like these claptraps that are in DKC, DKC 1. There we go. Not too bad. So that is UL 2 done. Now we're going into the bamboo forest here, and we'll have more bunnies. Get a good bounce here. This one, you can't carry this bounce until the very end of the stage because you gotta hit invisible blocks here. But it's not too bad. You can at least skip it. Well, not even skip. You can save a decent bit of time with it there, so it's good. So, one thing I haven't mentioned yet is that for whatever reason, every stage starts you in the air. So you can do the forward dash right from the word go, and this is the one stage where you actually start inside a block. And one of the things from Fantasy Explorer Nitroid, or Nitroid, depending how you want to say it, is that you can actually jump on like the first frame that you enter a screen transition. And because this one starts you inside a block, you can actually jump through said block if you're quick with the timing. I don't think it really saves any time compared to down dashing, because you gotta react to it properly, so it's not really that big of a deal, but anyway. One of the very few bits of RNG in this game are those bouncing green bunnies, which is really stupid, because they just kind of hit you out of nowhere. So, we got a little bit of a clip action going on here. This game is really weird when it comes to triggering switches and hitting stuff that's right next to you. So, one of the things that can happen is that if you jump like right next to a switch or next to an enemy, then you can double hit it. So you hit the switch, you'd like hit the switch twice, or you would hit the enemy and then send it careening forwards as the shell there. That simplifies the movement there quite a lot, because you're killing some of the enemies that are in the way. So yeah, another bounce, don't get hit by the spikes, so it saves a whole like 2 seconds or something. But it's fine, because now we have a bunny to go and walk up to. And if you know anything about Tay, she's a fair bit of a trickster. So, unfortunately, this is where the auto-scroll stuff starts for a bit. And, yeah, you kind of can't get away from this, but there's a lot of deception stuff here, like you see the blocks disappearing and whatnot. And red spikes, I haven't mentioned red spikes yet, they are instant kill. So, I guess I've got a little bit of time with this to go over some of the other mechanic stuff. Your special attacks work on an energy system. So you see underneath the stars, which are my health there, the yellow bar is for your energy, and if the bar is red, you can't use the special. But if the bar is blue, then you do have enough energy to use it. Each special uses a different amount of energy, so it's honestly just dependent on the character that you use. Marissa's Broom does take up a lot. You recharge energy faster if you are on the ground as opposed to in the air. Also, yeah, there's the fun thing with this that you just kind of walk on going, oh, what's going on here? Nothing much. See the red spikes go, oh, jump. Yeah, no, you've got to hit the blocks. This place is silly. So, yeah, I suppose instant kill spikes kind of fit well with the marathon here, don't they? Because, yeah, you guys are used to one-hit kills as is. So in terms of other bunny stuff, the black bunnies here will try and stay underneath you at all times. Well, try and stay on top of you at all times. Here you go, oh, there's a yellow thing, it's a spring, and then, oh, this one, spikes on the ground, oh, you'll just run straight into them instead. It's kind of a don't trust anything sort of stage here. It's a lot more difficult in the sequel to this game. This game has got a Lost Levels style sequel, where everything is just out to murder you at all times, and yeah, that's a lot more difficult, and we're not running that, but it's fine. So yeah, you just gotta hit Tay once and get down. There is a floor that, the floor caves away there, so don't bother with that. Anyway, this stage used to be done with Patchouli, because Patchouli can skip this boring auto-scroll thing, but then I found out Marissa can do it too. And Marissa is actually like 6 seconds quicker at this stage, because she just moves faster than Patchouli does. That's not gonna help. Alright. So, yeah, you're supposed to ride this platform the whole way, and that's boring. Who would want to do that? Nobody has time to ride platforms, right? You just kind of do your little diving thing. You're gonna apparently get the chat point because I didn't hit the thing there, but it's okay. There's always this one really stressful jump at the end that you've got to dash down onto the block, and then immediately dash up. And of course, with this being a marathon, it wouldn't be a marathon run without a little bit of failing, right? It's all good. So, the other, I guess, kind of unfortunate thing is that there's 3 auto-scrollers in a row here. You can skip one of them, but this one... probably the second worst stage of the game, because at least this one, there's a second section where you can skip something, but honestly, it's just, like, painfully slow getting through this one. There's not really a whole lot that you can even do here to be entertaining either, so... It introduces some conveyor block stuff, I guess, but we've already seen those in World 1, so there's not really much, stuff for that. But... yeah, it's okay. There's a total, let's see, there are 2 auto-scroll sections that we have to do in World 4, and then there's 3 in World 5, but they're all actually more interesting to do. So, you know, it's fine. It's just... I guess it's one of those aspects of game design where people will just go, hey, let's see what we can do with this, and then it'll be fun, but yeah, just a little bit too slow. Anyway, the shortcut is to go over the top here, and this actually gets you to the book. I haven't really spoken about the books yet, but each stage has got 1 extra collectible that if you get all of them, you know, in 1 in every stage, then you get bonus levels at the end of the game. But since this is any %, we're not bothering with those. Let's just go ahead. Nah, let's just run into the dude. That sounds like fun, right? This bit's really weird to actually get done, like, quickly, because sometimes you just end up, like, jumping onto a bunny or whatever, and it just doesn't end up working out in the way you want it to. That's fine. So, it's supposed to be a bit of a puzzle stage, because you got, oh, the switches do all sorts of weird different things, and it's great, but, you know... You can kind of skip most of it. Little broom bounce at the end here lets you avoid hitting any of those switches to make the platform stuff go. So, yeah. So then we get a stage which is effectively like 4-6 in Super Mario Bros. 3, where you've got 2 different layouts for the stage, and they do... well, they basically just have very slight differences to them. But if you get a bounce off of this bunny just right, which is easier said than done, but if you can get it, you can actually avoid having to do any of the transitions here. I might just have to skip it though, because this is not working out as well as I'd hoped. Yeah, we're just gonna skip that. So, the idea is that you can avoid going into this section at all, and it's a lot more interesting, because you just jump all the way over. But if it's not gonna work, it's not gonna work. That is just how things go. So, now we have Raisin, the other bunny, to go and fight. This was made before Touhou 15, so these were the only 2 bunny characters at the time. So, yeah. She has 3 different phases. She makes slight illusion copies of herself. Those bullets are not illusions, though. They will still hurt you. But that's okay, because she's not exactly that difficult in this one. So now we get super crazy broom bounce here, which is honestly not that easy to pull off. You can maintain the speed for the whole way through this stage, but it's stupidly difficult to do. We're just going to take the hit there, because why not? Oh, that's basically been the theme of this run so far, isn't it? Why not? So, yeah. I don't like World 4 that much just because it has a couple of really boring auto-scrolly stuffs here, and again, it's just the movement speed of it. If there was more to do here, this would be fine. But, yeah. That is also going to basically be the last of the boom bounces that we'll see in this run. There are a couple of others that can get done, but the stages at this point are a little bit too complicated to do them reliably. I'm going to still go for a couple, but there isn't really too much to save from a lot of them. So from here, it's more or less glitchless. At least, ideally glitchless. There is one negative glitch that can come up, which I'm hoping really doesn't happen later. I don't even know what I got hit by there. There wasn't a bullet on the screen as far as I saw, but whatever, it doesn't matter. So long as I don't get RNG hit by him. The blue wisps, the stars that they fire are purely RNG based. They will go in just random directions, and they can be rather disruptive in places. Like here, you know, you can just get shot by that, you know, by stars out of nowhere, and it's like, whatever. So, like that. Pretty much exactly like that. RNG is not a massive factor in this run, but the 1 or 2 times that it does rear its head, it's like, please, come on. I'm trying to do a decent enough run here. Alright, so this is one of the other stages where it's like, just stupidly slow. There's not a whole lot that you can really do to speed this up, because you've just kind of got these platforms that are taking up the whole screen, and there's no shortcut to this. It's just a bit of a shame. World 4 doesn't really leave a good impression at the start, but there are a couple of good stages that come up later on, I promise. It's just, yeah, you don't really have a lot else to do. There's sometimes more of these little fuzzies sort of spawn here, and it's it can get a little bit more hectic, but honestly, it's more about what comes after this. Clearly you can't just jump straight through these, which I have tried to get a damage boost there a few times. It doesn't work. You've just got to make sure that you don't accidentally jump into one of those, because dying on an auto-scroller is not fun. Alright, so this stage is all about these weird fairies that shoot the aim stuff continuously at you. You just outrun them, it's really not too bad. There's a very, very minor broom bounce you can get here if you land on top of that fairy instead, but whatever. So now we get to the mid-boss stage, which is a classic maze-like level. We know where to go, obviously, so it's not much of a problem here, but yeah, this stage can get really, really bizarre in places. Oh hey, of course I get that one, because, yeah, trying to get a broom bounce off of an enemy that is, you know, just walking on the ground, it's kind of really tough. Also, that room you're supposed to count the fuzzies as they fall down, and that's how you actually get through that. So, we get Yoshiko. Yoshiko stole Marissa's hat, which is, I guess, why we're wearing blue instead of the usual black that Marissa wears. But, yeah, you gotta knock the Koopa shells into her, pretty much. And you need to do increasing amounts of damage per phase here. The main thing with this last one is just make sure that she doesn't end up stopping in midair. If you don't get the quick cycle, she will stop and eventually fire a bunch of kunais at you. But if she stops too high up the screen, then you can't actually hit her until she moves again, and it's really annoying. So this stage is all about switches that do different things. Like, there are switches that make the platforms move in different directions, which is kinda neat. Obviously a little bit slow when it comes to speedrunning though. There's another switch which will move this platform to the left, but we're gonna just kind of ignore that, because we don't really need the one that's up there. Just so long as you time this right, you can dash up there instead. So no problem. So now we get to the last part here, where you do actually have to bounce off of one of those whilst it's in midair, otherwise you don't get enough height. But that's okay. So get through no problem, and then the last of the really annoying auto-scrollers, this one like, I don't understand why this is a World 4 stage. That's all I can really say to this one, is just, there's not a whole lot to it. You know, it's like, oh no, I got hit by one thing, but there's a full power here that gives you all of your health back. I guess we could talk on the health stuff. You get, you know, 3 health at most, and if you have 1 health, then you can't use your special ability. But, yeah, that's pretty much the extent of it. There honestly just isn't much to this. But that's fine, because the next stage is really good, so I'm okay with that. Yeah, so I guess it changes directions. That's kind of cool, right? Honestly, there really just isn't a whole lot you can say about these sorts of stages, though. I mean, they're in most games that you'd play at this point, and this sort of style, but it's fine. So now we get to do something more interesting. This stage has a 100-second time limit for each part, and you probably wouldn't even notice that during normal play, because it doesn't take you that long to get through. But this screen here is probably my favorite to do in the game, but it is rather intensive to practice for long periods of time, because the movement is very, very particular, shall we say. So now we've gotten to the end of this, you can jump on the spike here to just damage boost rather than hitting the spring, because the spring sends you too high up and it's really slow. So now we're going to play with Alice, because Alice is really good at the couple of bosses at the end here that we use her for. And this is another one where you're supposed to ride the platform, but nuts to that, because Alice does what she wants, and you can actually go ahead and just skip this platform entirely. Just need a good little hop at the end there, and we're through. So Alice does fall slower than Marissa, so she's a little bit slower at this section, but she's going to make the boss of this part so much easier to deal with. And this boss is an RNG fest, a complete run killer. This is Sega, and yeah, she's a butt. I'm not a massive fan of this fight, I will admit. But Alice's shield just lets you kind of bounce on her quite a lot here, which is really good. Not when she goes there, though. This is the one part of RNG that gets really annoying, because I can't damage her when she's under the world like that. And that's a much better spot. So you just use the shield and bounce off it, no problem. And now we have to hit Yoshika with a couple of these fuzzies over here to make Sega show up again. So just hopefully time this right. There we go. And yeah, final phase. This bit's really nasty on the RNG if you're trying to use Marissa, but we're fine. Made it through, no problem. And now on to the final world, where it's mostly Marissa, but there is one more stage of Alice to show up here. You can ride up that wall if you're not careful when it's going up, by the way. If you just try and do that a little bit too quickly, you end up going up the wall instead, and that's pretty annoying. But that's okay. So, this stage, there's not a whole lot to it other than that wall, but there are a couple of invisible blocks around. Now we get to the final major skip here. There are switches that make this platform alternate between going up and down. We're going to skip 2 of those switches by going over the wall here. So we were supposed to hit 1 switch to make it go back up, 1 switch to go down, and this is the 3rd switch that we're supposed to hit. And now there is a 4th one to make it go down again, but we're also going to, well, we're going to try and skip that, assuming that the RNG is going to let me through. So that's fine. Yeah, so there's the book collectible up there if you're trying to go for those, but we're not, so that's fine. And now we get into the stage where we see, oh, blocks can transform into enemies now, because that's a pretty cool idea. Honestly, actually is pretty cool. So you can save a few seconds by going up the book route here, because rather than having to go down to that particular area, you can just kind of go over the top of the world instead. So last part here, you gotta be pretty precise with the ending here, because you want to stay ahead of the bullets here. Oh, and then that happens if you're not precise. So we're just gonna take a couple of hits just to maintain my advantage there. That's fine. I'm not gonna pretend to do this without taking a hit at the start, because honestly, it's barely possible, but it is really annoying to do. So we're not even gonna try too hard on that one. So now, like I say, this is one of the last auto-scrollers here, and it is still an auto-scroll, but it's a bit more interesting because you do have at least a little bit going on here. You know, there's some fun stuff that happens within this. So these guys, like I say, they'll jump if they see you jump, which is kind of neat. 6 minutes for last world. No, okay, so my PB within this is like a second under 33 minutes, so we're nowhere near that in this this particular one, but it's okay. Still a decent enough thing here. So you gotta make sure that you don't go too quickly for this section, because those platforms will permanently disappear. So you gotta just temper your excitement a little bit. Get through that in no time. And now we have one final stage for Alice here, the mid-boss stage. So one thing I haven't sort of noted yet is that you can kind of get stuck on the ceiling here. We didn't get stuck there, but like you can get stuck in the spaces between blocks if you're jumping like up. And it kills your momentum entirely. It's really annoying. But that didn't happen at any notable point during this run, so it's fine. So the ending stuff here, mostly using Alice for her ability to just like shield in the air and get through this no problem. This last part is actually kinda tricky to do with Marissa. Definitely doable, but a little bit on the awful side. Anyway, RNG stars! This and the final stage have got that problem where the enemies are firing in an RNG based pattern, and it can be really irritating to get through without taking damage. So, Niue, she has weird projectile stuff here, and that's fine, we're good. Need to make sure that I have a hit to take here so that I can just shield the projectiles. Get down on the ground, because her last phase is kinda weird. There we go, no problem. So that is the last stage where Alice is going to get used here. It's all Marissa from here because the speed is kind of important. So, yeah. Sort of tricky jumps to set up. I'm going to take the safety because we've already died on an auto-scroller type thing today. I am not going to risk having to redo that entire stage. So we'll take a couple of seconds just to get the checkpoint safety there. Yeah, so this one's a fair bit faster, that's why it's a more interesting auto-scroll. It's like, yeah, it's still an auto-scroller, but there's a lot more going on here, because it actually moves at a decent pace. So, I don't know, I like this stage. Auto-scrollers are not inherently bad, it's just the way that they get used that's normally terrible. So you want to kill that fairy, because otherwise it's going to shoot another, like, really fast aim shot at you when you're on the middle of the springs here. And that is incredibly disruptive to the jump. So you want to make sure that you don't get caught by that. So now, just like in World 3, we have another quote-unquote puzzle stage with invisible stuff here. Just a little bit more involved than the last one. There are blocks on top of that spike that you just don't want to get caught by. Oh, and then I apparently missed that jump, which is weird. Okay, so you're supposed to make a switch block appear so that you can make those blue blocks into actual platforms to stand on. But we haven't got time for that. That's no thing to deal with. So here again, a couple of these weird little blocks. We're just gonna apparently tank all the hits here because we can. There is power at the end here, so it's not much of a problem. Stage is really tricky to actually get through quickly, so I'm just gonna take my time and still die because using the broom is a bad idea. Yeah, this stage is honestly probably the biggest run killer for me. Oh? I don't have any idea what that's... Is that coming off on my side? Oh, I think I know what that is. Give me a sec. Am I... don't have any idea what that is. Sorry. Oh, I think I know what that is. Sorry. Okay. I think I was echoing through because for whatever reason the stream started. I don't know why the stream started. That was weird. This run has just been weird in general, but that's fine because it's what we're here for, right? Is weird runs. I don't know. Anyway, final stage here. This one is really tricky to get through without taking damage as well. You want to make sure. Well, you want to make sure you do a short hop there so you can actually not take damage with that. Yeah, it doesn't matter how many times I play this one, I still end up getting caught in this. Apparently broom bounce there? That is not what I was trying to do. I was trying to jump over the... Yeah, I was trying to jump over the enemies there and not bounce on them. But that's fine. Ooh. Don't get clipped by the enemies at the very end of that. And now we have one final scroll to deal with, but this one's a bit of a doozy because it's going in a different direction. Yeah, but no, it's not because it's going in the other direction, it's because honestly there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong in this one. Also, hitboxes are weird. Just in case you needed any indication this is actually a fan game, there are weird hitboxes in this as well. So, yeah. Good luck getting that book. If you're not playing multiplayer and you don't have somebody to sacrifice themselves to get it, good luck. It is honestly ridiculous trying to get that. Anyway. It's mostly about just not taking any unnecessary risks in this part, to be totally honest with you. Because you want to just make sure, especially with that guy having fired up there. Again, you don't want to go too early on those platforms. I'm going to take the checkpoint just to play safe. Shouldn't need to, but this last part does have RNG at the end, so want to make sure that I don't end up having to redo the auto-scroller, because that would be very much not fun. Yeah, because these guys are pure RNG, and if they decide that they're gonna hit you, they're gonna hit you! So, Nue is a Nue, and she transforms into one right here. This is your final boss, your Chimera, if you will. And yeah, she fires lightning down. That lightning is also RNG. It's like the only sort of instance of it in this fight, but honestly it doesn't really matter that much. It's not too relevant that it is RNG here. So you gotta hit the, well, obviously hit the spell circle points. First one on the head, second one on the tail, third one back to the head. To get to the tail, you have to wait until she's done her first lightning phase in this one, so that you can actually get this cloud to appear. I haven't actually found a way of speeding this up yet, and I'm kind of ashamed at that, but that's fine. I'm sure there's something that you could do involving the fairies that try and aim at you, but whatever. So you don't want to just bounce on top of the hitbox here, because then you go really, really high into the sky. What you want to do is you want to bounce on the side of the hitbox, so that you don't go nearly as high up. Final phase takes about 16 hits, and she does have a claw attack that will damage you if you're on the ground next to her. And then time is when the screen completely fades out, and there we go. Not too bad overall. There's a lot of minor things that can go wrong here, but yeah, it's okay. We still dealt with this fairly well. It's what, about 36-18 on stream, 36-14 on my timer. It's not too bad. And that's pretty much it. Now the actual game time will be different because it actually runs during the credits too, which is weird. But essentially, Nue stole all of our stuff. We got it back. Byakuran's like, I told you so, you shouldn't have done that. And so she cries, and it's like, oh. So yeah, that's Amapani. I don't really have much else to sort of show with this. I just figured, hey, it's a cute little platformer, and it's surprisingly heavy on the tech despite not having many glitches to it. So it's pretty good. So hopefully you guys enjoyed as well, and yeah, enjoy the rest of the marathon.
Alright, thanks so much for coming, Gamercal. That was a fantastic run. I really enjoyed that one a lot. It was great to have you here.
Oh, good to hear. Hopefully I'll be in one of these in the future.
Definitely, we look forward to it. And yeah, like Gonichu is pasting in chat, guys. If you want to check the man out, Twitch TV/Gamercal. How often do you stream, dude?
I stream most days, not normally the fan game stuff. I'm mostly doing Links to Past Randomizer at the moment. I'm in the bracket stage for the spring tourney, so a lot of practice for that right now. But yeah, most days I do streaming at some point, so yeah, pretty good.
Beans. Alright then, guys, we're going to go ahead and prep for the next run for Kaizo Mario.